See, I am me. I am your host, Rashawn Warren. And today we got a new episode. In this episode, we're going to talk about the heart of service, the Gerald Ford story. Hey, let's just go ahead and bring Gerald in. Let's go. Gerald, what's going on? How you doing today?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you feeling?
I am remarkable, and I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I'm gonna give you all a quick background. Once upon a time, I was a young person, and I had the opportunity to work at this place called Opportunities Cleveland in Cleveland, Ohio. And as I was working there, I come across this other young man at the time. You know, that young man is Gerald Ford. You know, he was my boss. What I would say to him today, a steady hand, a person who was always giving wisdom, who was just kind of moving the ball forward. And I just want to let you know now, I didn't let you know then that I appreciated the person that you were at that point in time and how you were always invested in others. So Gerald, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Rashawn. I'll get more to you as this process goes. I definitely want to chime in to you and what you brought to our team. Me, I'm just a guy from East Cleveland, Ohio. Grew up during the heart and the heat of the crack era, crack epidemic. Grew up in an area that had a lot of gang activity. But in school, I was one of those dancing and singing kids, always involved in theater, always speaking somewhere. And what I found out, which is at the heart and the core of the youth work that I do, things that I did naturally that sometimes I was either put out front or made fun of. Those were the things that I found were my gift. And so just a kid who found his way and being around supportive, caring adults. But I'm someone who, grown up in a pretty tough era, I have a underlining underdog story. I believe in finding my way out, finding success, of being after being seen as that you can't do it, you can't make it. Coming from East Cleveland, Ohio, a lot of people think that a lot of good doesn't come out of East Cleveland, but you can make it, you can do well. Coming from that, going into areas and fields, being in speech and debate and theater, there weren't a lot. When we would go compete, we were competing against. We were usually the only all black speech and debate team, and so that was, we had to make sure we came in winning first, second, third place all the time so that we could score it. We had a small team, but we always finished on top because it was about quality. And that's a theme that goes throughout my life of quality and excellence. And so that's a part of it. I'm just a regular guy that believes in helping, that believes in serving. And I know that I get that from my parents and my grandparents.
No, that's inspiring, right? That's the story of many that come from your neighborhood, and many come from our neighborhood as well. Like when you coming up, I think some of those things that are inside of us are is that thing of hope.
Right.
Like we hope that we just get the opportunity. I don't think we really just hope that like things work out. We just hope that the opportunity presents itself, and once that opportunity presents itself, it's all on us now to go for it and get what we need. So, what else would you like to share with us as we start to open up this thing? So, you're telling me like, hey man, you were this kid, people made fun of you. You had these things that they were laughing at, and bam, at the end of the day, that was that was your saving grace. That's what propelled you.
Yeah, I mean, in school, I used to get in trouble a lot. You may not believe. I mean, I was always getting in trouble for being off task. I was things that I am I'm praised for these days, or things that on the other end, things that got in trouble, because I can look back on me now and see that I probably did had attention deficit disorder, right? I probably had ADHD. I probably did have those things that would get you identified. But back in the early '80s, we were right before they started prescribing Ritalin in masses. I probably would have been on that. I just remember my mother speaking to the principal of school, and I heard her say, "I don't know what to do with him. Maybe we
Mm,
should get him to speak to a
mm,
psychologist." And I didn't really know what a psychologist was, but in my mind, as a 6 year, I'm like, I don't want to do that. It doesn't sound good. And so I just started getting it together. I was my mother would talk to me if leadership was always a part of what I was doing. I would get in trouble for leading kids the wrong way. And my mother would say, well, Gerald, can you just try your best to do what you're supposed to do and see how that goes? And so I would go into school and I would test it. I would test being a fool and off task and watch people be a fool and off task. I would test me doing the right thing and watch people follow behind that. And so that was something I learned at an early age, is that sometimes, and you see this in leadership, as you prepare leaders, as you've gone all around the world teaching and preparing leaders, some things is two, some things is it's internal, it's automatic. Some leaders are born and some leaders are made, grown, and developed, right? Based on certain situations. And I sort of try to become the best of both worlds. There are things that are naturally in me that I need to work on, that are phenomenal, that I need to challenge myself to do better in. And there are things that I learn. I'm a constant student.
Yeah. I was told one time, there's no such thing as a bad leader or a bad person, right? And I'll use it in this context. They say that there are those who know, those who don't know, and those who have just yet to be taught. And sometimes those folks who haven't been taught, they turn out to be the best because they're willing, but they're not able. And once you make them able because of their willingness to learn, then they are the ones that usually blossom into the best. Hey, so you're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we're going to come back and jump into the first segment.
Hello, welcome to Veritas. I'm your host, Adam Colazetti, and I'm here to guide you on a meditative adventure like no other. Join me and lose yourself in your imagination as we travel the outer reaches of the cosmos, quest for powerful talismans, and explore the inner realm of your subconscious. What might you find along the way? But be warned, fair traveler, this path is not for the faint of heart. On this path, of one thing I am certain, dragons be here. Are you ready?
All right, so we're back now. So I'm super excited to talk to you because it's been a while, but what I've been dying to understand is, what inspired you to jump in the career, that's serving those youngsters who don't believe they've been seen, that's been mistreated, that's been abused, that's been overlooked. What inspired you to go there?
Well, that's an interesting case or interesting story. So you're still a professor of ROTC, correct?
No. So my last job, I was a professor of military science at the University of North Alabama. Now I'm the deputy commander for air defense in Japan.
Oh, okay. I didn't know about that. Okay, so
I'm moving.
Right. Well, you always are. But so let me go back. So I was in ROTC in high school, JROTC. And
Yep.
so we had actually in that time in the 90s, we had one of the few JROTCs that were actually, our staff were NCOs, usually there's an officer, in charge. And we had ours was Sergeant Major William Gibson and Sergeant First Class Eugene Ramey. I mean, those are like, they became like fathers to me. Very strong men. They are a part of how I am as in youth development. And you'll get this theme as we talk today, people who absolutely cared about you to the nth degree, but didn't tolerate anything less than your best, didn't tolerate anything less than respect, not overbearing, not abusive, because now what we have in our culture in 2024 and 2025 is that any type of instruction, any type of corrective action is seen as abusive. It is seen as overstepping or seen as if you don't love someone. And I was able to come up under leaders who can care about you and still hold you to task. And so we had part of the culture in our high school ROTC department was that we had what we call ROTC junkies and groupies. They just would hang around the office all the time. And so I never wanted to be a part of that crowd, right? So one day I just happened to be walking past, and Sergeant Major Gibson said, "Ford, you need a job for the summer?" I said, "Yeah." I was 16. He said, "Go across the hall." So I went across the hallway and I met Captain Theo W. Thomas, who was captain in the United States Army, but also a teacher in the Cleveland Public Schools. He was phenomenal. I met him, and at the age of 16, I started working with, he was serving youth who were, he was working at Iowa Maple, a school here in Cleveland, and he was noticing all of the behavior issues that were going on with young Black males. And so he decided to put together a program. And the term back then, which we cannot use now, is called SBH, Severe Behavioral Handicap. And so he started telling me the stories of it. And I'm like, I'm 16. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. He's like, yeah, they fight. They might jump you or all these things that would come up. I'm like, I don't know. I can barely fight myself. Right. So we go across. And if you could believe it, this is when all the boot camps for juveniles was a big thing. So if you could believe that, I'm in fatigues, I'm training, I'm running them, and I'm doing all these things. And I got connected with it. I returned every single summer. In fact, I was one of his only staff. He had a very high threshold of excellence and what he expected for those youth. And I was one of the only staff, and I'll go back to actually return every year to eventually I end up running his entire program. And to know him, to know that's a major honor. He doesn't play about his organization, but I connected with kids from all over the city of Cleveland that were growing up in the same type of environment that I grew up in, but have very different circumstances.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly, there were 3 kids that all were in a foster home, and all 3 were in different gangs. And they barely liked each other, would fight with each other. And there was something that was just, I connected with them. I knew I was going to school. I wanted to be a teacher, right? And so I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to start out working with youth. But I never knew that it would connect with me because, I was an instructor. And most of the time, the youth thought I was much older than what I was. But I was in the same age bracket as them. And eventually, it just became something that I did. I'm going to use a double negative. I could not do it. It was something that I had to do. It was something in my heart. I just wanted to give them the same chance and the same opportunity. I saw amazing things inside of them, amazing athletes, amazing artists, amazing singers. And I just wanted them to get past whatever they were going through. I just wanted to be a good brother to them. That was my mindset back then.
No, that's awesome, man. And I think whenever you can be a part of something and then grow into it, because severely, what do you call it? What is the acronym you use? Severely
SBH.
behavioral.
Yeah, handicap.
Okay, so at the end of the day, whenever you take the opportunity to go help somebody, it just makes you feel good about yourself. I can kind of attest, just even when I was at Yo Cleveland, not many of those relationships I kept when I left, to be honest. But the young lady, you remember Lanice Robinson.
Yeah.
She was my youngster on my file, but she was always in the mix. And I felt a connection to her because I felt like she was like just a female version of who I was as a youngster, and even to this day, I still talk to her to this day. I literally sent her a text message yesterday.
Wow.
Because like being able to help and see progress in someone, it made me feel like super awesome about myself. And I'm pretty sure somebody felt the same about me at some point. So with all of that stuff going on, and you're being part of the program, you're helping people, you're giving up yourself to help those people who sometimes who feel unseen, with all that, is there a specific moment that you remember that kind of reinforced your passion for helping or human service?
I think we go back to what that program was called, Innovative. It was at that time, at first it was called Youth Resource Center, but we found out it was another organization that had that name, so we had to change it to Innovative Paradigm. But I remember, again, I was 16, and I remember a kid who, from that household, it was the 3 in the 3 different gangs, but he really didn't want to be in it. He was in there. And this is what some people, this is what happens to me now working with adjudicated youth, that sometimes the court systems really don't get or understand. I get it from growing up in gang culture, and I get it from working with youth, is that there are many youth who are involved in gangs purely for survival. Purely for survival. They don't want to be a part of it. They don't like it. They don't like the culture of it. And this young man was one of those. If he had his choice, he would have never been in that. But that's what he had to do because that's what his household was. So I remember the one he was compliant, and it was like his mother would tell us, or the foster mom would tell us, when he's here at the program, he's amazing. Because we would tell him all the amazing things that he was doing, how he's helpful, how he's kind, how he's a leader, how he was talking about his artistic ability, how respectful he is. And then she said, at home, he's an absolute terror. At home, he's an absolute terror. Well, part of that was he had to survive. He had to put on his bravado. He had to always be ready to fight, with his brothers, who were sort of not really his brothers, right? And so I remember one day in our program, he just was off. He was really cutting up. And I said, oh, this is what she was talking about. This is what was going on. I said, oh, the honeymoon is over. And so then when we finally sat down to him, I remember I said to him clear, I said, what's wrong with you? What's going on? And a Hollywood writer couldn't write it better than this. He just looked at me, he turned red, and he burst out crying. And he said, you don't know what it's like not being adopted. And it was the day after, it was the fourth or fifth family that had thought about adopting him, met with him, and decided not to. So can you imagine just continually meeting families over and over again? You have to deal with the fact that you're not with your biological family, right? Where's my mom? Where's my dad? Why don't they have me? Why don't they love me? Why aren't they caring for me? Why aren't I not coming home to a home with both of my parents? So I'm dealing with that. I'm in a foster home with dudes who might want to beat me up, might want to jump me. They take my food, right? I'm dealing with that. Yeah. And I have to continually meet with families that say they don't want me. How long do you want me to behave? How well do you want me to behave? And so I think sometimes the adults who facilitate the systems, the social workers, the caseworkers, the judges, and the attorney, like there's real time in dealing with heartache and pain. And to say, go back to the original question you asked me, that's what really got me committed to doing this type of work. I'm trying not to tear up now. I just wanted to, and that was 33 years ago, right? I just wanted to make sure that I was there for someone. I just wanted to make sure I was at least one caring adult in the kid's life. And so if you think about that, Rashawn, I want you to think about, you never knew that story, but think about how I was at Yo Cleveland. That's the underlying theme of who I was. That was always in the back of my mind, how I conducted myself, how I carried myself, my expectation of other youth development workers, right? That can you just be a caring adult that doesn't want anything from a kid but for their success? And that's it. So that's I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, finish up.
No, that was it.
Oh, no, because I'm saying, that's powerful because we all have these experiences that start to shape our lives and how we view the world, and I can tell you, so you talking about that story, I used to, I grew up, my mom was always the one. My mom did everything. My mom, single mom, did everything by herself, but, some of my friends, I would hear them talking about how they were getting ready to go somewhere with their mom and dad. Or, like their dad would come pick them up from somewhere, you know what I mean? Or they like, hey, you want to go kart riding with me and my dad, and I only have my mom, I wanted a dad. I never came out and said, hey man, I want a dad, y'all. Somebody give me a dad around here.
Right.
But watching those other people having the experience of a complete total family sometimes like weighed in on me. So unconsciously, I think I started zooming in on people who were like me, who like look like me, who come from the same situation from me, who were struggling in the streets like me. And I always ended up in a place like maybe like a Yo Cleveland or something, or maybe now in the military, I do a bunch of mentorship stuff. If you follow my timeline and you look at where I've been, I'm around people, young people, and I think I'm just trying to make things complete for folks who don't feel like it's complete for them. And I think I did that unconsciously.
Right. No, I see that based on when I see you post on social media, you consistently being in leadership, you consistently been in a mentor form and developing people and going that extra mile. And I think I shouldn't say I know that's a part of who I am and what I am in a type of, I never, even when I have a position of authority, I always try to make sure I actually care for my team. I always try to make sure that the moment that they leave, that they're better some kind of way. That I always try to offer leadership opportunities, moments of growth, learning about themselves, learning about myself. And I got that from my mother and my father. And my father was in and out of my life, at different times. There would be times where he was there, and there would be times for a certain amount of years I wouldn't see him. And that was a tough thing for me to deal with. So sometimes you may hear me talk about my dad. You may hear me say, yeah, he wasn't there, because guess what? As life goes, it was both. It was that time he wasn't. And I saw myself in certain ways, like you, one of my best friends, she in East Cleveland, she came from a 2-parent household. And I would just be amazed at seeing a mom and dad in a healthy, loving relationship move around the house. And I remember my friend's name, Monica, who's a social worker, which is so important. When we were at Yo Cleveland, I used to call her when I would have certain things that I wasn't sure about ethically about the type of services we should be offering, because she was a licensed social worker. I would call her and she would give me, here's what you should do. Here's how you should move forward. And I'll give you a story about that later on, maybe. But I would sit out with her dad. He would be on the porch telling me all kind of crazy stories about him singing doo-wop on the corner and all this other kind of stuff. And the 60s. And she like, Gerald, come in here. You don't have to listen to that. I'm like, I love hearing all these stories.
Yeah.
I love just sitting on the porch listening to him. And what's so interesting, of all the men that I knew, he was his name was Jerry Mitchell. He was the only person right before I got married that told me I would be a good husband. And that almost put me in, I cry a lot. That almost put me in tears, because I saw him be a great husband. I saw him be a good father, to his children. For him to say that to me, that kind of floored me. He said, no, I know you'll be a great husband. I'm like, wow, that was something. But
that's good. That's good to hear. When I hear stories about stuff like that, it just makes me smile. Like when you say, care for your team, like I'll tell you this story. I was speaking at this thing not too long ago. It was actually about domestic violence and about suicide prevention. And I was sharing a personal story with the troops, about like sometimes people think I'm like aggressive about stuff, and I told them why one would think so is because, I grew up in a household where it was wild west sometimes, domestic violence was a thing. And I was a youngster, so like a lot of times when I would hear yelling and screaming and stuff breaking or people getting hit and things like that, I would get so nervous, so scared, because I was so little then. Fast forward till today, when I hear people screaming, when I hear people yelling, when I hear people being like abrasive, my heart beats really, really fast. It's almost like I'm back when I was a kid, but I'm bigger now, right? So I'm like big guy. So like, I'll come around the corner like, who talking like that? Who was in here? Because internally I'm coming to neutralize the madness, right? And and when it's a weird dynamic that when you come to neutralize aggressive behavior, the aggressor becomes intimidated. Wow. Now the aggressor is like, oh, he's coming for me, right?
Right.
Absolutely correct. I'm coming for you. Because you're doing something that's not commensurate with a developing atmosphere. But the only reason I act like that is because I remember that feeling, and I think that person who's being treated like that is feeling how I felt as a youth, and I'm trying to stop it. But that kind of rolls into self-care. I do a lot of reflection. I do a lot of this right here is therapy, right? Because I believe these instances where we get to talk to people and we get to hear people's stories, that's helping somebody that's out there. Somebody out there right now that's going to be listening to this episode is going to be like, that guy right there, I was going through that same thing. And maybe they can glean something from the information that we share with them through our personal stories. So with talking about self-care, like, why is self-care important to your mission and to you?
I'll tell you what, as smart as I think I am, and I love to use wisdom, I honestly didn't come into direct knowledge of self-care as a professional until 2021, right? When it was an organization. I mean, I did it in other ways, but like to really be conscious of the fact and know the theory and know the what was behind it and know the practices. That's the other word, theory and the practices behind self-care. I was working for an organization called a University Settlement. And we actually had to wear badges that would have our self-care plan on there. So what do you do when you get frustrated? What do you do when you get sad? Well, you have to put it on your bag. I'll take a walk. I'll go talk to Rashawn to see, how he's doing today or things of that nature. It was part of an organization where trauma informed care, where that was what we did for our clients, but they were just as the trauma that your staff go through as well. That was at the forefront also. And so we would have to take time and take breaks. That when you consistently and constantly deal with family and people in crisis and deal with traumatic situations, that's weighing on you. It may be in your subconscious, it may be in your spirit. It's certainly there with you. And so how are you unloading? How are you dealing with that based on the trauma that you may not have even dealt with? And so what that did as a professional, I had to start working on certain things. I had to start presenting certain things because our organization was going through a certification process of making sure that everything we did was based on trauma informed care, how we speak to our clients, how our forms are done, the type of questions that we ask. How do we start off our meetings? We start off our meetings. Hey, Rashawn, how's it going today? How do you feel today? And you have to say, how do you feel? So if you say, well, I'm not feeling too well. Okay, Rashawn, is it okay if I check in with you later? And if I say that, you say, yes, okay. I have to go check in with you. You know what I'm saying? And you will ask, well, what do you need help with today? You say, well, I'm working on this project. And I say, well, who can help you with that? You see what I'm saying? So it becomes this thing. But think about that. If we started doing that in our friendships and in our families, how do you feel today? What's going on? What's up with you? We usually say, how do you feel after we get a hint of something rather than starting off with, how do you actually feel today? Right. And then following up, how can we catch up with you? How can we check in with you? But not just to check in as a blanket generic check in, but to being able to hopefully connect you with some type of resource to what you're dealing with and making sure that you can make it through that process. And so I've come through, I know who I am at my last place of employment is based on what I learned from University Settlement. There are certain things that I would have done based on how crises were presented to me, how situations presented to me, how I would have just dove head in first. And just now I look at things a little bit differently. I look at how it's going to affect me. I look at how what's going on with work will affect my relationship with my son. What mindset would that put me in? How do I put boundaries up? And I learned about the 5 boundaries, and there's a 6th boundary. Learn about, the financial, the emotional, the mental, the sexual, the intellectual boundaries that you have to put up. And once I start, listen, let me tell you something, Rashawn. Once I start putting up these boundaries, I learned this, especially the financial boundaries, right? Once I start putting up boundaries, I started to pay attention that people pretty much knew how I was going to respond.
Well, yeah.
They know how you're going to respond. And so it's really on you on how you start saying, nope, I don't think I'm going to do that. Nope, I don't think I'm going to attend that event. Nope, I don't feel comfortable with that. And not feeling as if teaching yourself how not to feel guilty about saying no. No matter how respectfully you say it, no matter how much you say it out of care and concern, some people still be mad. Some people may still be offended. But if they truly know who you are, you're not saying it to be offensive or to hurt someone. You just have your boundaries.
Mhm. Yeah, we just talked about not too long ago. I had a conversation about vitamin N, and that's
No.
that no, right? They say I heard the marathon runner say one time. He said a lot of people are suffering from a lack of vitamin N, and I was thinking in my mind, I'm like, vitamin N, what is this guy talking about? And he was like, no, and he mentioned that in that context because he said there's a lot of goals and a lot of things that he wanted to get after, but there was also a lot of things that other people wanted from him that would take away from his effort and his ability to accomplish his goals.
Right.
And the only way that he can get to where he wanted to get to was to prioritize himself. And in order to prioritize himself, he had to tell other people no in order to be a world-class champion. And I think you're absolutely correct. Like, and what you mentioned with your boundaries. But the weird thing about boundaries also is like you're saying, once people know your boundaries, they think twice.
They do. Yeah.
Because when they're coming to you, they're like, yeah, he's not that type of guy, or that's not something that he really supports. Or, now you're forcing them into a way of intellectual thinking also to make sure that they can get the things that they need, because that ties into emotional intelligence as well. Hey, Gerald, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we're going to come right back and jump into the second segment.
No problem.
Hey, it's AC of AC Sports Live, an interactive sports talk show where your comments are part of the show. Every show we focus on the sports stories of today, with commentary on sports takes, my 2 cents, which is a reaction to my social media feed, Sports Flicks, where we take a look at sports movies and give a quick review. We have a segment called Mental Reps, where we have words of inspiration to help battle the dark side of men's mental health. And then there's the Tender Love Report. Who's being soft or petty in the world of sports? All takes are welcome under one condition. Say it with your chest. I'll see you there.
All right, so we've been talking about a lot. And, when we both got a lot of things going on, we got our hands in a bunch of different pots. But all those pots are progressive for us, and all those pots are helping other people. But we talked a little bit about self-care, and when we talk about self-care and helping others, there's this thing that pops up called balance, right? Now we start having to balance not only our career, but we have to balance ourselves. So how are you balancing Gerald? How is Gerald balancing himself?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I remember I was being interviewed for this, and we'll get to the youth development fellowship, and they would ask the question about how do you deal with burnout, and I remember that I answered the question. Sometimes you don't know that you're burnt out until you're on the ground looking at the ceiling, until you're actually all your energy is just spent. You're just done. You don't even realize it because you've been in a process of giving and helping. And this, that, in the form as a leader, as a form as a teacher, a motivator, and a mentor, when you put yourself in that position, and or when you accept that that is your position and you put it out there, people come to you, people talk to you, and I noticed we talk, being a pastor, when you'll get a call, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, say hello. The next 3 words are, I want a divorce. The person saying they're sick of somebody else, or my son is in jail, or my mom passed away. The type of work that we're in, when you serve humans. And there is not just a 9 to 5 in which their situations occur. And so when you open yourself up for that, you open yourself up for all types of time, and you open yourself up. So, and on another way, people come to you. It could be draining. What people don't know about me is that all of my gifts and talents are extroverted, but I'm an introvert. So usually when I'm at work, when I'm pastor, when I'm doing something, I'm up. I'm 1,000%. I'm full energy. I'm going at it. But when I'm done at home, I'm quiet. I'm off to myself, and or I may not even want to come back out. Now, I'm saying that for a reason. That begins to get my balance, because people sometimes will make you feel bad for not wanting to socialize. It has nothing to do with not wanting to be with someone or not wanting to socialize. Is that my social battery is down and I need to recharge. And me recharging can be me sitting out, going for a walk, looking at nature. It could be talking with some friends and just making sure I have a process of just breathing, being mindful, relaxing. I've included in my daily routine to literally sit with my legs crossed, just being still in total darkness. That's it. Just being still, because I know that once I'm on, when my son is up, that boy is high energy. Once he's up, it ain't over until it's time for his bed. Now, I will say the beautiful blessing about him, and he's an amazing kid, is that once he goes to sleep, he's out. Like, you can be looking at him 2 seconds, he instantly falls asleep. So, but once he's up, that's a full day. Dealing with the type of folks that I serve. I love the people that I serve, and I make sure I'm there and I'm present for them, helping them with, connecting them with resources, and that I've never, I don't want to curse, never done anything halfway. I'll just say it like that. I try to be thorough in everything I do. But the cost of doing thorough is doing a great job, doing the real work of being thorough, going that extra mile when, work is over, but you receive a call, you receive a text, they need services. And then once people know that this is what you do, I don't just serve the people that I'm assigned to work. Your counterparts call you in the evening. Hey, Gerald, I know you work in that program. I got a son, I got a brother that needs this. Hey, my brother-in-law needs this. And so you're constantly serving. So to answer your question, I find time for me to relax. I'm gonna give you my number one and number two favorite things to do.
Let's go.
Is that I love going to Edgewater and just watching the waves. That's it. Total. That's it. I really don't want anybody with me. I just go, and it does. And also, I even go in the wintertime when just watching the snow sit on top of the water, and that's an amazing time. And then on Mondays, there's a place called Brothers Lounge. I love to go listen to jazz from about 8 to 10 o'clock. I listen to jazz, and I don't have anybody with me. And I tell my friends that if you want to come with me, I'm not trying to discuss anything. I'm not trying to solve any problems. Let's just come and chill out. But I really love to go by myself. And I'm stepping into this new phase, Rashawn. I'm telling you, this is new for me. I'm stepping into it. It's going to sound bad. People are not going to like it, but you know how I serve. You know how I love people. So I'll never stop doing that. But I'm stepping into this phase of being a lone wolf, just like walking my path. This is who I am. And positively and proactively embracing who I am as a person of solitude, as a person who seeks peace. I saw the movie and I just ordered the book Peaceful Warrior. I don't know if you're familiar with that book or not, but I was dismissive of it. And I really want to get into it more now, and really, because I see where I am. And I think that's the best thing that describes who I am, is a person of being a peaceful warrior. I don't have to berate you. I don't have to put you down. I can still be who I am, and treating you decent, treating you kind, and leading you and helping you. And that's sort of it.
Yeah. The peaceful warrior, I spend a lot of time alone. I spend at work. I'm with everybody, but right. I'm here in Japan alone, solo, by myself, right? So when I leave work, if you see pictures of me, I'm like just traveling to going to see something. But I'm by myself, no talking, looking, eating new stuff, because I still feel the need to experience what it's like to be Rashawn. And I say that because and I told this story and I was laughing about it. I'm in charge of a lot. A lot of people I'm a mentor to, a lot of people I rate, or senior rate. And sometimes I'm watching them do their thing and watching them be themselves inside of their job. And then I forget that I'm Lieutenant Colonel Warren, because I'm watching it and I'm admiring it. Then I snap back in when somebody be like, "Hey, sir, what should we do about this?" I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Right.
But right. I was admiring your efforts, and I love to watch others people's success. I just love to see people who may not have been winning become a winner, and that feeling that they have when they have achieved something. Because when I have those feelings, I don't really ever get to reflect on them unless I'm by myself. Like I travel on the train. If you ever come here, the bullet train is called the Shinkansen, and I get on it and I go to the farthest place, and I just like sit in the window and I look out the window, and get a little drink or something, and I just think about where I'm at and what I've accomplished. And when I think about my accomplishments, they're not even aligned with something that I won at. I've lost a lot, but I've won a lot too. But my happiness comes from like Rakim, my son. I just think about like, oh man, this dude's a senior in school, man. I'm like, I helped him raise, and he didn't die on me. I actually was able to keep him alive this long until he could take care of himself. So those type of things kind of come back to me, and I appreciate your honesty as sitting in the room with your legs crossed. I wrote that down. Just sitting down and watching the waves. I can go watch the waves. I have that ability, and but some other people don't have that ability. Some other people they're grinding it out 24/7. They're trying to make it happen, which are most of the people that people like you and I service. When you talked a little bit about your energy and and how it's challenging in your field, this question may sound cliche-ish, but how do you stay motivated? How do you keep that going?
So let me jump. Let me say this. I do want to throw this in because it's not connected to anything. As you mentioned, you mentioned your son. I want to tell you that I have watched you father him from social media, from him being a little boy all the way up. And I mean, I'm on all the posts of what you guys do. And when I say it's you and maybe 3 or 4 other guys that are my absolute motivations in how I am with my son. The way you love him and care for him and challenge him and support him. I see you giving him the support that you wanted. But not only that, because sometimes that can be a dangerous thing. I remember this, and this is going to connect. I remember working with this young lady, and we worked in a group home, and she wanted to do everything that she didn't have and didn't receive. But it was almost to an unhealthy point. It was almost like she wasn't even seeing the kids that she was serving because she was trying her best to make sure they didn't experience what she experienced. That's a noble and a commendable thing, but you still have to see the people in front of you for who they are.
Yeah.
You understand that? And so that was a big part of it. And so still allowing your son to be his own person with his own set of successes and failures and wants and desires, and still support it. Because not only just being informed, but supporting. And the best part of support is sometimes stepping back and seeing how they do things, right? And so I just want to tell you that you've always been an inspiration to me as a father before I even became a father. And so I just want to applaud you for that, especially somebody who I've run 2 fatherhood programs. So you've done an amazing job and still are doing an amazing job with that. So I'm very proud of that. But to answer your question was what again about?
How do you stay motivated?
Well, here's the thing. It's ebbs and flows. Obviously, I speak for myself. Sometimes I do lose motivation. But what I can say is almost like what you said when you hear them call you, when you hear them say sir, when you hear them say lieutenant colonel, it's like you instantly snap. And that's how I am. No matter what I'm going through, when I'm on the clock, I'm giving my all. It's not even something I have to conjure up. It's just there. And I think what happens, it goes back to when I was, when I was 16 and started doing it. I had already been a person of service. That's how my mother had groomed me and my brother and my sister and I to be a person of service. But then, even with that, it was just naturally built into me. So how do I stay motivated? There are times where the actual volume of the work, there's a time where the actual seriousness of the work, that can become overwhelming. And we do have to be careful about when we say we're overwhelmed at work, because others can use that against you. you know, in terms of, oh, you can't handle it's too much for you. And rather than just letting it be, I want my staff, if they tell me they're overwhelmed, I'm not going to use it against them. I want to learn, because when someone says they're overwhelmed, that's usually an indication of something emotional that's going on. It's not that they can't physically do the job unless it is, right? And so you find out, well, what is this going on? How do you feel? And then once you start working with them, you can start decreasing on what's going on with them in terms of being overwhelmed. So I stay motivated, and I'll say this, I'll turn on some motivational videos, I'll play them, and I'll listen to some Eminem. I know people don't like, I'll listen to that and what he's doing. I'll listen to some DMX, you know, that'll get me going. But I'm a Christian, the word of God. I have my go-tos for the artists I like. So Marvin Sapp, I'll play it, I'll get in the zone. And again, those times, all the lights out, I'm in my home and I'm just letting the word go. I have a nice, beautiful view of the woods and the park from my patio. And I just sit and just look. I taught my son that maybe 2-3 months ago after we were playing soccer. I said, come here, G, let's sit down. We just sat. And we would take in, we will hold our breath, and we will let out. And I said, just watch the trees, just breathe. And even if he thinks it's the dumbest thing or the craziest thing in the world, guess what I did? This is what we do in youth work. I just created a new experience for him. Mm-hmm. I just created something where he can do if he wants to later on in life. And we'll do it again at some other time. And then that may be something I remember my dad, we used to just go sit and just watch the trees and just chill and relax and tell him that's what you have to do. So I just continue when I see that I'm getting down, when things are feeling overwhelmed, or when I feel like I can't solve a problem. That sometimes can be overwhelmed, because I believe in being a problem solver. I consider myself a problem solver. I take time, I sit down, I figure it out. I remember one time, my ex-wife, she would say to me, I was going through something. Actually, I was at Yo Cleveland, and I couldn't figure it out. She said, oh, you'll figure it out. And I'm like, she's not even listening to me. And she said, no, you'll figure it out. And she said, like the 5th time, I said, why do you keep saying that to me? She said, because you usually figure it out. I said, oh, okay. And so that was a confidence boost. So I take time to see where I am, acknowledge where I am, and identify what I'm feeling when I'm feeling unmotivated. And usually it's something that's not even based in reality. It's some type of anxiety, it's some type of insecurity, it's some type of, I'm not looking at the situation from a pragmatic standpoint. And then I just go hard, get at it, and I turn it up. And I have what I call a snap. I just snap. I just say, all right, Ford, let's go. And I get it. You know, it goes back to my sergeant major. Can I tell a story real quick?
Yeah, go ahead. It's your world.
Okay, so what we used to do in our JROTC, we had our formal inspection. You know, Fort Knox would come up and give us our formal inspection, right? Mm-hmm. And then during the informal years, John Carroll, their military instructors, they would come over and inspect our department to make sure we were ready for the formal inspection, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was time for the formal inspection. And so I was promoted to battalion commander, right? I didn't want it because I was a junior, and they usually reserve that for seniors. And all of my staff, right? And all of my staff were seniors. Rashawn, I wasn't ready for that. I'm like, they're not going to listen to me. And I'm like, and so, you know, I'm sure you may have heard this, you know, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. They're not ready. And so I had a point where I think I kind of was like walking in circles. And my sergeant major, he looked at me, he said, Ford, what's going on with you? I'm like, so-and-so, my S1's not doing this, my S2's not doing this, and it's supposed to be ready. And I'm not going to say what he said, but this is the old school teaching that you need. He said, Ford, suck it up. He said something else. He said, handle it, but he put some explicitness before that. And then he said, move out. That's it. That's all he said. He didn't sit down with me and problem solve. And he didn't say, can you tell me really what's going on? And he didn't say, but there was something powerful in that. What he was saying was, man, you got it. You have the authority. You have the position. Yep. You wouldn't have been promoted if you didn't. I believe in you. Go handle it. Go. Let's get it done. And that was it. And so I use that with myself, and I use it with my son. Sometimes I get to that point where there's people don't believe that I have anxiety. A guy we used to work with at Yo Cleveland, Dan Mullen, and he said to me one time, he said, Gerald, you know, you move so confident. I'm like, man, I'm a mess up here. You just don't know. I said, but I turn it on when I hit that parking lot. I'm on, you know? And so the thing that I'm saying is that there are times where I'm kind of frazzled, and I'll get myself together, get myself centered, calm down, goes back to that balance. And I just make myself do it, and I'll deal with the consequences after. And they use that, no, I don't mean like consequences, but I'll just deal with it, you know? And I learned something from that. And I use that with my son too. He'll say something. I say, G, just handle it. I say, you do whatever you think is best, and we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, because the tools are there.
Right.
The tools are always there. It's kind of weird that your sermon maker to tell you that. I started laughing because, you know, one time somebody told me, one of my lieutenants when I was a captain was like, "Sir, how do you make these decisions so quickly?" I said, "Because I failed at them already." And he was like, "What?" I'm like, "Hey," I said, "when I was a lieutenant, I was going down left and right, fail over here, fail over there, fail over here." I was like, I've seen that thing, but I also know, you know, intertwined with our daily experiences with each other, I've already taught you how to navigate through that. You know, I don't have to tell you that, hey, I'm teaching you this lesson right now, because I've been putting you in the situation already, so you can try to figure it out when the time comes. Because my way of thinking is, I want to take all the things that I've lost at, and I want to create scenarios throughout each day to help you navigate through that. And as I watch you go through, then mentally I'm checking off some things. I'm like, okay, I don't got to worry about that anymore. I ain't got to worry about that anymore. I don't got to worry about that anymore.
Right.
But since they're still developing knowledge through experience, they don't really see that particular scenario. They just think it's part of the way. It's part of the continuum to win. You know, and earlier, you know, a little bit ago, we just talked about the motivation. And you said, hey, it ebbs and flows. And you're absolutely correct, right? Because motivation is temporary.
Right.
Motivation does not last forever. But however, the discipline is what you need to rely on. And I think throughout your life, throughout the stories that you've told us so far, you know, you've been building all of these tools to the point to where it doesn't matter if your motivation is up or down, you're still going to be able to execute because you have the understanding and the knowledge of how to get things done. You in your writings, when what you wrote to me before the show, you talked about your mantra. I care about me. I care about you. All I care about is powerful. So tell me about that.
Yeah. So again, where I am in this new phase of my life, right? I'm really paying attention to, and I urge anybody that's listening, I urge you to, you may already be doing this, just like, who are you naturally? Like, just who are you as a person? What do you naturally like to do? What do you naturally like to go for walks, lay down, basketball athlete? Like, who are you naturally, right? Without anything being added to it. And I noticed that who I am naturally, I'm a person of service, right? I'm a person that genuinely cares about people. And there's something that's kind of going around, and it's good social media talk about, and I get and I'm not licensed in anything, right? And I get what people mean about people pleasers and wanting to help and wanting to serve all of the time, is that it's based on some unmet need when they were a kid, or they always had to do certain things for their parents. And I can say that I really had a very loving and caring mother. And I just believe in, it's naturally who I am to care for other people. And so all of the career choices that I had have always fit who I am as a person, who I am spiritually. And so when I would hear people talk about, you know, you working for the man and you a slave, and it never ever in life connected with me, because I always loved where I worked. I always loved the work that I did. I always loved the people that I was serving, right? And so I just didn't understand that. And so I care about me. That's a challenge area for me. That's a strong challenge area for me because I care for others so easily in my personal life, and I care for others in my professional life. Who's the last person that I care for? It's me. So it's a challenge for me to make sure the same level of care, Rashawn, that I've given anybody that's ever been on my caseload in any program, I deserve that same level of care. Even me saying that was difficult for me to say. I felt uncomfortable saying that I deserve care, specifically me, right? And so I've had to challenge that feeling, just as I had to be the career coach, the case manager to myself that I have been for other people. They say, well, Gerald, why do you feel uncomfortable feeling that way? What is it, the areas that you need to care for you? How do you care for you? Well, I didn't know until one of my best friends passed away in 2017. That I had gained up to 370 pounds, up to 370 pounds, right? I didn't know it until I saw my friends from college, and they literally said, Ford. And then I saw the pictures of how big I was. And then one of my college friends, she just said, as much as you love your son, you just ain't going to be here for him. You can't continue at this weight. You got to start taking care of your health. And so those are some of the things that I started to do. I started to actually caring for myself, and to care about others. I care about me. What do I need? What do I need to be a better person? What do I need to better myself? What do I need? Peace? Do I need to challenge myself to have mindfulness time? Do I need to challenge myself and be around people more? It's you know you better than anyone. Do you need to see a therapist? Do you need to talk to a family member? What is it you need to do so that you learn how to actually care for you? The second part of it is I care for you. Specifically, someone in your life, how do you provide care for them? What do you do? How do you listen to, instead of like wanting to rush my mother off the phone, just listen to her, just talk to her, right? And you know, when my aunt wants to bake a cake for me, I say, no, it's okay. Let her bake the cake, right? Or go over there and carry the groceries. Can I clean up for you? What did I can do? Of being in a place where you genuinely help someone with nothing to gain from it. How can you care for someone else? What is it that they need so that they can be better, or that can put them in a position of being better? And then I care about all is a global stand. I want to make sure that I'm pursuing being a global citizen. So how am I showing that I care about this world that I live in? And that's where my son comes into place. I want him to grow up seeing his father care for himself, caring for other people, and caring for the world. Because at some point, my grandmother said it best. She said, you do know your kid's going to leave, right? She said, now the question is, what type of person do you want them to be when they leave your doors as an adult? She said, that tells you the type of parent you have to be. No formal education. I think she maybe made it to the 7th grade, but that was one of the most powerful things that I could have ever heard someone say, is that your kids are going to leave. So what do you want them to be when they leave your doors? That tells you the type of parent you're supposed to be. And so all I'm doing, that goes back to all this learning and training I went through about youth development, because youth development, the goal is to help youth successfully transition into adulthood, right? So she just said that, but she said it for your own children, your own DNA, right? How do you help him, help her face this world? Because one day we won't be here with them, right? So that's that. So that's I care about me, I care about you, I care about all, and that's where I'm going. So I'm working on a logo to get a shirt or something made, and all of that, and website. You know, try to be Rashawn Warren light.
Oh no, you don't want to be Rashawn Warren. Like, you know, I tell people all the time, it's hard being Rashawn Warren. It's just as it's hard being Gerald Ford or whoever you may be. You know, people only see the external. You know, and the inter battle is always powerful, no matter where you're at. All right. So in conclusion, Gerald, you know, I want to give you the floor. If there was something that you wanted to say to the folks out there, and that you wanted them to take from all the perspectives you shared today, what would you want people to have?
So that's interesting. So I'm working on something right now currently, and I'm writing something that's called Nice Guys Finish First. So much of what we do, being a person that's decent and treat people well, it's sort of like you get stepped over. I just really want people to truly, what we see in society, what we see on social media, we see more people and what in terms what we would describe in working with youth or in schools, acting out behavior. People feeling they have the right to hurt and harm and curse someone out. And we are honestly, and this is a word that's become desensitized, we're becoming desensitized to seeing other people hurt other people. We're becoming desensitized to seeing other people disrespect other people. And so if I could leave anyone with anything, what I would always want us to work on is I care about me, I care about you, I care about all. I want you to really take time with yourself. Make time to sit down and think about who you are and what you need to work on so that you can be a peaceful person, so that you can be a person that offers something to someone else and offers something to this world. And if you need help, reach out to get help. And there's a lot more I want to discuss, but just pursue your goals, pursue your dreams in the best way possible, and challenge yourself. Make yourself get up and do it, and just deal with the consequences, the rewards, the repercussions of everything that you've done, and take the emotion out of it and look at it pragmatically and see how you end up. That's it.
Well, if somebody wanted to get a hold of Gerald Ford, how would they do that?
Well, you could reach out to me through Facebook, Gerald A. Ford. Now you type that in, it's the president's name, former president's name. So that's why I do, Gerald A. Ford. So you can reach out that way, or G475 on Instagram. And that's about it. Reach out to me. I'm getting ready to go through a whole rebranding and all of that stuff. And so, you guys will see it, but reach out to me. You need help with anything, I'll try my best to connect you to any resources absolutely possible to see you become the better you.
All right, everyone. I'm Rashawn Warren, the host of CIME. That was Gerald Ford, and we look forward to seeing you again. We're out.
All right. Thank you, sir.